Good evening. This is W2NDG Whiskey 2 November Delta Golf. Neil from Highland, starting the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club's Sunday night Science and Technology Night. And we gather here at 8 p.m. on Sunday nights to discuss science, technology, not always ham radio related, but sometimes. And tonight, I think we're going to do an open discussion night. I have a couple of ideas that if no one comes up with something in particular they want to discuss tonight, I can push the discussion in one direction or another, but we always have something to talk about here. It's a good night for this because I don't want to run too late tonight. I have a different schedule coming up this week, and I have to get to the city rather early tomorrow morning, so it works out well for me as well. And then a little schedule change for next week. I will not be here to do the net next Sunday, so going to have something else going on. So if Jim wants to fill in solo, that's great. If not, we can skip a week. So, but having mentioned Jim, let's see if Jim is with us tonight. K2BHM, are you with us?
Hi, Neil, Jim, K2BHM here. Been under the weather. I'm here. I'm not sure how much help I'm going to be. I'm here.
All right, understood. And you have no problem running things next week when I'm out, or, as always, you can cancel it if you feel fit. That's not a problem.
Not sure what's going on. We've got a wedding going on down in Long Island, and I think we might be leaving Sunday or Monday. We're not sure yet. Not sure what's going up in the air, but going to be down in Long Island for a little over a week.
All right, well, that's fine. We don't have to do this every week. Just giving the option. And, I'll put the call out if anybody else wants to step in. If not, the regulars here, you're always welcome to meet without us and discuss things. And that's no problem. It might even be a lot of fun. So, science and technology. There isn't a whole lot new that popped up this week for me. Frequently something that's foremost in my mind is something that I heard about or read about. I have been dealing with a number of projects I've been working on and off for the last few weeks, but mostly soldering things or new radios that I've been working with. One of the things that we could brush on a related topic tonight, this coming Tuesday, we do the second Tuesday presentation series, which is the second Tuesday of every month. We try to have somebody in to talk about something technical or radio related through a Zoom session, sponsored by the OMARC Club. And I do have some very interesting people lined up, but I couldn't get them to commit to the first one here after contacting them. So Tuesday, I'm going to do a discussion on microcontrollers, specifically settling on Arduinos and similar microcontrollers, and talking about programming them and what you can do with that and how it relates to our hobby, because it really does very strongly relate to our hobby these days. And a lot of the discussion will be aimed at the non-programmer. So don't think that it's going to be way over your head, because it won't. But there will also be something in there for the people who do know how to write an Arduino sketch. So that's coming up on Tuesday. We'll even mention, how the Raspberry Pi relates back to all of that, because that's a very common subject in the club here. We frequently talk about the Pi and what it can be used for. So, all right. So that's a little plug for Tuesday. And so for open discussion night, we'll take check-ins, but let me drop and see if there's any emergency traffic out there. If there is any emergency traffic, please throw your call sign out and we'll let you have the repeater. All right, no emergency traffic. If during the course of this net anybody does have an emergency, please notify us immediately, and we'll drop communication so that you may communicate your emergency. All right, let's take check-ins. I've got Jim, K2BHM, already checked in. And anybody else who wants to participate tonight, please come now with your call sign and your name.
This is KB5BV.
Sure is. K2LD. Bob.
KQ. Net control. Here is KB2. GGF mast in Kerhunction.
Net control. This is KD2 TVS Lou Westmore.
All right, the third check-in there, you gave a call sign and no name. I didn't completely catch the call sign. It was KD2, and it sounded like DDT or VVT.
Yeah, Neil, this is Joe. KB2. Joe from
Ah, hey, it's Joe, who I guess you found a spot where the radio works tonight.
I certainly did. I'm standing outside leaning up against the recycling bin.
Well, excellent, and I'm glad. At least the weather is getting to where you can actually do that. All right. Well, thanks, Joe, and we will put you in the rotation here. Okay. And after Lou, is there anybody else who wants to check in tonight? Please come now. All right, nothing heard. I'm just doing my clerical work here. Okay. And so the way this will work, let's do a quick round here. And if somebody has something in particular that they would like to talk about tonight or questions, and once again, remember, it doesn't have to be ham radio related. So you could have heard something in the news this week or in some sort of science news or journal, anything like that, something that's going on in space. That's what we're here for. So let me just throw it back to Jim real quick in case he has a direction he'd like to push us in. But Jim, I know you're a little under the weather, but if you'd like me to ignore you in the rotation, I can do that. It's no problem.
Thanks, Neil. Yeah, I really don't have anything. And this flare up has been intense. So I'm not even sure I'm going to stay awake for the whole thing.
That's right, Jim. And I understand, believe me. So please feel better and take care of yourself. All right. Mose, KB5BV, welcome. Anything in particular you would like to talk about or hear tonight?
Thank you, Neil. Hello to everybody. Well, let's see. I had something on my mind the other day I thought would be a good subject, but
as usual, I have already forgotten it. But one thing I want to ask about is on the Tuesday night meeting about using the small computer processors and radios together. Will that be on Zoom, and will you be sending out an email with a link to it? I'd like to listen to that. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. So that's about it. KB5BB.
Oh, that's fine. And somebody will send out a link. Usually Dave does with it's the standard, Zoom link that we use. So that will get sent out. And yes, it's a Zoom only thing. We've been trying to do these regularly, but we don't always hit. But it's the second Tuesday of every month. Usually it's 7 or 7:30. We one of us or we line up guests, and we do have a couple of really good ones coming up. I just couldn't get the guests to commit to this one. So, but we'll have a couple to announce as soon as I nail them down to dates. But yes, it'll be Tuesday, and Dave records them and puts them on the OMARC YouTube page for watching later if you missed them. So, all right. Well, thanks, Mose. K2LD. Bob, what's on your mind tonight?
Hey, Dale. Much. I just got finished eating. We went out for Mother's Day dinner, and I am on my way home. I still got a ways to go, though, so I'll be in range for a little bit. As far as topics, I didn't really think of any. I mean, there's always a couple things jogging around in the back of my head. I don't know if you want to delve into things like that. Could definitely talk about like IoTs, of how non-communication devices communicate and talk to each other, and you don't know what they're really saying. And security-wise, is that a breach of some sort? Even stupid things like my water heater has Wi-Fi on it, and it knows when I'm home, even though I don't have location set on my phone. There's a lot of security issues and things like that. So, I mean, it's a possible topic, not necessarily tonight, but for the future, maybe. And I'll just throw it back to you.
No, it's definitely something that can be brought up, and we've talked before about things that don't even use actual Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, but use what we call unlicensed radio frequencies. Things like tire pressure sensors or these weather stations that we all bought. They use a particular set of frequencies that doesn't have to be licensed. Usually referred to as the ISM band, but there's more than one ISM band. And if you've heard of the terms Zigbee, there's a couple other terms that come up, and this is how some of the smart devices in our home communicate either with each other or with a hub that then can communicate with the outside world. And yeah, it's a good idea to know what's talking. I know I have a bunch of Wi-Fi enabled things here, and once a month or so, LG sends me an email telling me that my washing machine needs this or that, or how many washes I've done that month. I mean, I could turn it all off. Something like that doesn't bother me. But yes, there are definitely things going on that could be considered an invasion of privacy, and it's definitely something to talk about. And there are, not every company is probably 100% compliant with whatever security rules they're supposed to be following. So I don't worry about it too much. There are definitely people that do. And there's a lot of misinformation in that subject as well. So it is something we could talk about at some point, if not tonight. All right. Joe, KD2, CCT, welcome. Good to hear you. And anything been burning a hole in your brain lately? Please tell us. Joe, if you're there, I think we lost that sweet spot you were in. So, and I forgot to mention how to find us on YouTube. I usually do that in the introduction, but it's W2NDG Science and Technology if you search for that. But you could always give a watch through there. But let's try Joe again, see if he's there. Joe, you were all static. I may have talked over you, Joe, but you came in as all static and then dropped out. So I didn't even know you were still transmitting, I guess. But yeah, something, if you went back inside or what have you, I'm not sure, but we're not getting you. So I'll give it one more try here. And if not, listen and throw comments in on YouTube.
Okay, well, I'll give it another try and try to
I caught the first few words, but then it faded off into noise again. I know. And at some point, like I told you, please remind me, get in touch, and we'll get something set up for you with a little more power or maybe a better antenna. Joe is located in the definition of a bad spot in Kingston. I won't describe exactly where he is, but yeah, he's definitely in a bad spot for the repeater, whereas almost all of the city there is good. He's a lesson in signal reflectivity. So, and his reflections aren't going to the right place. Joe, I'll skip you for now. If you do get back outside at the end of the rotation here, I'll try you one more time. But let's go to Matt, KB2GGF. Matt, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, thank you, Neil, and good evening, everybody. Well, what Bob, K2LD, said, very interesting to me. And, you guys just saying that, you have water heaters that have connectivity and other appliances like that. I don't have any of that. I feel very old-fashioned now. None of our appliances are intelligent. We don't have any Internet of Things controlled devices. I don't use Alexa or any of that. And the only smart devices, I have 3 Wi-Fi controlled LED bulbs, which are the only smart things or Internet of Things type appliances I have. But I also have very low level of noise. A lot of people I talk to have a lot of background noise, high level of noise at their QTH, and I wonder if all these gadgets talking might be the source. But just an interesting thing to me, anyhow. But that's about it. So back to net KB2 GGF.
No, it's definitely a good point. And yeah, I have devices. I think they're cool. So, Alexa, are you cool?
I do my best.
There you go. Yeah, there's one sitting next to me here. There's a Google device here as well. I got one free and I wanted to play with it, try it out. I hardly ever talk to it. It's frequently not plugged in, but it's another one. My washing machine and dryer, I already mentioned. They are smart devices. My garage door openers are, but I don't have them connected to anything at the moment. A couple of reasons for that. And of course, the TVs. If I wanted it to be, my IC 7300 here can exist on the network through a server, but still it can. And there's definitely other devices here. My printer, is full Wi-Fi. There's plenty of stuff, and things coming. You can get Wi-Fi connected coffee pots and microwave ovens and refrigerators. And is it all necessary? Some of it's neat. It is kind of handy to know, when I'm not anywhere near it, that the washing machine is finished. It'll alert me, but I don't need that. I can easily turn it off. I didn't buy that device because it came with Wi-Fi. It's just when you get to a certain level in features with a lot of devices, it's just there. It becomes part of it. We were looking tonight at blinds for the house in Lowe's. And one of the neat things, is that some of them now, they have these electric blinds, and of course they have remote controls, and of course they're connected, so that, if I were to do, let's say, the bedroom blinds, I could say a word, open window 1 blinds, whatever it is that you define it as. It'd be nice to be able to do that without getting out of bed, but of course it comes with a remote control. I don't know. What level of convenience are we willing to sacrifice a certain amount of security and reliance on a network for? It's a great question, and maybe one we can get into a little further. But, if someone's going to hack into my system just to open my blinds, well, they've got entirely too much time on their hands. Well, I got cut off somewhere in there, but I was rambling. Anyway, Lou, KD2TVS. Your thoughts on what you've heard so far, or is there something that has been bugging you that you want to talk about?
Good evening, Neil. Good evening all tonight. Look at me. Actually, I'm looking forward to Tuesday night. I have played with a little bit with Arduinos and Raspberries, but Arduinos, and I haven't written code for them. I've altered code, that I've seen, but that's just simple changing the timing on something, nothing major as far as programming or anything like that. And sketches that I've used for those, basically stuff that I've copied offline. In fact, I have a Arduino project sitting here on the desk, and it was basically a clock, and it has one of those little piece to it that I forget the name of it now. That keeps the time on it, so it sets up it'll send it to the display. I guess so it keeps time. Actually, that's what I meant. So it keeps the time. But I was looking around for a sketch for it. I thought I had one that I was looking online for, but apparently I lost it. So I gotta hunt around for that. And so I think it'll be a great discussion on Tuesday. And this IoT stuff with all these units in people's houses talking to them. Yeah, I guess there's a convenience to it. It isn't a necessity, like you say. Not really. So, we can't, I guess, automate ourselves so much that it keeps us from actually thinking and doing things, I guess. So I'll just leave it at that and let it go around. So thank you, Neil, KD2TVS.
Well, that's fine, Lou. And part of what I was thinking about discussion-wise was just to talk about what programming actually is, what a programming language is, and how they've evolved. And there's different levels of programming languages. We refer to them as different generation languages, and where the different ones that we use, where they fall into that, and some things that aren't really programming languages but are similar. There's a certain history here, and it goes way back. So it's the basics to understand, but these days, if you really want to get into programming, it's not that hard. they've really simplified a lot of this. So there are really, really easy programming languages now that are more visual and metaphoric. So it becomes a matter of just kind of building blocks of things that you want to do visually. And the best way, personally, for me to learn a language that you type out, like, Arduino code is based on C, or if you're programming in Python, which is a very popular language these days, and there's a number of other ones, is to look at the code for a simple program that you know the result of. And like Lou was saying, he hasn't written any Arduino code, but he's modified it. Well, that's pretty much where I am. I'm not a programmer. But if you give me a program and tell me exactly what it does and a reference so I can look up syntax and what the words mean, I can play with it. I can modify it. I can reverse engineer it. I can change things, and sometimes even debug it if I know what it's doing wrong. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing, and a lot of people are afraid when they hear that word, programming, that you're going to have to program something with a computer language. Don't be afraid. It's definitely something that anybody can learn. So, let me drop for a moment here. Now, once again, this is W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. I'm just going to try Joe again real quick, KD2CCT, to see if he was able to get to a better spot. And if not, like I said, Joe, just dial us up on YouTube, W2NDG Science and Technology, and you can always throw a comment up, and I'll see that. So let's try Joe again one more time.
Okay, this is KD2CCT, Joe. I don't know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can.
Well, that's the best you've sounded yet. Almost full quieting.
Well, very good. I'll keep it short as to not push my luck. Yeah, I've got a whole drawer full of Arduinos here, and done some playing around with the sketches as well. So it's always a fun topic. Looking forward to participating in the future. Okay, this is Joe, 82 CCT.
All right, Joe, and I'm just looking on QRZ.com here. All right, you don't have an email address up, but if you want to make sure I can make sure you get a link to the meeting on Tuesday. I'm sure Dave would not have any problem with you attending. He usually opens it up to non-members. So, and I know we probably want to get you in as a member anyway, but yeah, if you can get me your email address, I'll make sure you get a link to the meeting.
Okay, that's very good, Neil. Yes, and I have every intention, hopefully, to become a member. I have a lot to learn, and being with a group is a good way to do that.
Excellent. All right. So, however you want to do that, I think you could probably send it to me on Facebook. I think that's how we were communicating before. So, either way, I will get the link to Tuesday's meeting. I think we said 7 p.m. So, I'll make sure you get that.
Okay, thanks, Neil. I appreciate it, and thank you, everybody.
And for those of you who haven't heard Joe on here before, I've known Joe a very long time, and I forgot recently that he got his ham license not long after I did. KD2CCT. My original call sign was KD2APZ, Alpha Papa Zulu. So he got his ticket right before Jill did. So, and I have known Joe, I believe, since kindergarten, right, Joe?
Yeah, it kind of goes back that far. I can't remember how far back, but I don't ever remember not knowing you.
Yeah, I think there was a kindergarten level class, wasn't it? It was like Mrs. Eichhorn, I think, that we were all in. You, me, Spencer, and the gang. So, yes, I've known Joe a very long time, and it's good to hear him on here. thank you for checking in, and I'll make sure I get that to you somehow. Is there anybody else who wants to join us tonight before we go back to the top of the rotation? And give us your call sign and your first name now.
This is Kilo Bravo 2, Romeo Whiskey Whiskey, Bob, mobile, on my way to work, just in and out.
Oh, well, thanks, Bob. Thanks for checking in. I don't know if you have a quick blurb you want to say or you're just out, but that's fine. We were topic hunting tonight.
I have a plethora of topics, but I have missed what's already been said, so I'm just going to refer back to the net. KB2RWW.
All right. Well, thank you. And thanks for checking in. And it was good catching you in person last weekend. That was neat. So, people, you'll talk to somebody on here for years before you actually meet them in person. And it's always interesting, I know we all make those connections in our mind. And sometimes we meet somebody and they're exactly the person that we thought they were on the radio. And sometimes they're completely different, but never a bad thing. And Bob, you were pretty close to what I imagined you. It's one of those things. You hear somebody and you try to draw a mental picture, and it's sometimes it's a fun game, and it's also a good test of not sure how to say it, but that sometimes when you take somebody's presence out of a situation and all you're left with is the vocal part and everything else in a relationship, it's interesting. It makes our brains concentrate on other things and kind of makes me understand how people who don't rely on sight think. I don't know. I'm rambling off in some funny direction here, and it's probably showing that I'm really tired. So let's pop it back up to the top. KB5BV, Mose. Anything else to add tonight?
Well, Dale, I'm still sitting here trying to rack my brain and not think of what great subject I had. I just need to write things down. But I am looking forward to the information about the Arduino, and I know that's a very popular item now. A lot of the robot makers use it. It's taught heavily in schools and so forth. So I just need to learn a little bit about it. So I'm looking forward to that. KB5BB.
W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Night. Well, thank you, Mose. And yeah, so it's going to be a little different. This isn't, as we call it, death by PowerPoint. There is a presentation attached to it, but it's very short. And most of what we're going to be talking about is hands-on stuff, which is cool. I found some really neat tools for learning how all this stuff works, and I'm pretty happy with it. So, and I even have a live example, which is cool, just showing how a lot of this stuff comes together and how it works. So, and it's become a really huge part of modern ham radio, which is why it's relevant to our subjects here. All right. Well, on to Bob, K2LD. So, Bob, you definitely opened the door to a topic, and it could be a topic for another night even. I don't know if we have enough time to even get as deep into it as you would want to.
Okay, first, just tell me how I'm coming across, because I am on the back mountain road climbing right now, and I not sure of my output signal strength. How am I doing?
You're doing okay. You're going the back way home?
The back mountain road is open, and that's where I am climbing right now, probably around 800 feet now, heading up to 2,000. Let's see. Just one quick comment I wanted to make when you said about how I was pictured and how it was what you thought. The time that I actually physically met you, we had talked on the radio for had to be at least a year or so prior to that, and I believe it was you picked up a radio for me at D&T, and when we met, and you said, "Hey, I never really actually met you." You know, it dawned on me that you're right, but I felt like I knew you so well just from talking to you all that time that it didn't dawn on me to say, "Hey, that's you." It was, it's just the association you can make by somebody's voice over a long period of time really is pretty interesting. Quick drop. And back on that first topic there, one way that I try to separate things so it doesn't have the potential for going over, and you can tell me if this is a good idea or bad, is my home network I keep as my home network, and everything that I don't really want to get into it, I put on my guest network. So that would include everything from Alexa or Google or the water heater or the thermostat or weather station, and everything else goes on guest. You think that's a rational idea? And I'll throw it back to you.
Well, your guest network is definitely usually more secure. There's usually a few more hoops that someone would have to jump through to hack into it. But I don't know if it's actually helping a lot or not. One of the things that I do when I'm suspect of a service, and so not necessarily a device, but when you're dealing with connected devices, they're services. They're communicating with you on some level in your life. I'll use an alternate email address. Usually a catch-all email that I have that I can go to, to check things once in a while if it's not something I need constant alerts from. But I also have like an alternative phone number because I use Google Voice for my main number pretty much. I can route things to a different number and still get those alerts. So I'm capable of doing that as well. So, if I'll send something to, let's say, my personal cell number, and let's say I registered the washing machine under that, and so it's texting me at that number to tell me that the washes are done. Well, if I suddenly start getting text messages after I do this on that number from somebody wanting to sell me vinyl siding and somebody else, wanting to know if I need extended warranty on my car, whatever, if I wasn't getting any of those messages before and then suddenly I start getting them, I know who's selling my information. But that's, if I'm suspect of something, I'll do that. So it definitely works with emails though. And, you can kind of put everything into a different bucket that way. So I've done that, and I've actually caught a couple places, making things worse, we'll say. I will say that Google Gmail, which I know Jim isn't particularly fond of, and I know why, and I understand it. I respect that. But Gmail has fantastic spam filtering. So sometimes when you use that for some of these things, you won't even see some of the annoying stuff. Let me throw it back to you, Bob.
Okay, that's interesting thought that you're using a different email for just dumping stuff like that. I do have a few dumping emails that I usually use when people want to give me something in the store for free, and then I'll put it there, and I never ever really look at it. So that's the thought as far as doing that. And I am at the top of the mountain right now. I'm at 2,200 feet, and I have to go into a little dip of a valley, so I'm probably going to lose it. But I am less than 5 minutes from home, and I'll pick it up when I get back home. So I'll
All right, Bob, and kudos to you. I know that road, and it's not the easiest thing to navigate with a radio. All right. Thanks, Bob. Let's see. I think Joe said he was just going to be listening, so let's go to Matt, KB2GGF.
Well, thank you, Neil. I don't really have much more to add, but I did enjoy tonight's net, and good to hear everybody, and hope you all have a good evening, and speak to you soon. KB2 GGF 73.
All right. I was just about to type a response here to Aaron. Aaron, are you also listening? You can type a yes, and I'll just repeat the topics here. All right. So, yeah, we did open topic tonight, and a couple things came up. Bob brought up Internet of Things that communicate sometimes without us wanting them to. Like, well, restrict a device, but yet somehow information still gets out of it. He was just talking about the security of IoT devices, basically. It's a good topic because I would think that not all of them are as compliant as we might think, but I tend to be a little less, a little more trusting of them than some people. Some people don't have any of them in their house, but that was one thing that came up. I was also mentioning Arduino programming and programming in general because Tuesday night's presentation is going to be on microcontrollers and how they relate to our hobby. So those were a couple of things that came up. So anyway, yeah, Internet of Things is the future. Of course, it's already here for a while now. Yeah, it is. And, we're talking, some of these things are just pretty damn convenient, aren't they? But there are people out there who believe that some of the devices are always listening to us, and you'll be talking about something at the dinner table, and then suddenly you get an ad from Amazon about it the next day. But in most cases, we're so used to poking at things online now. W2NDG for a quick ID there. We don't always think sometimes that we're just kind of absentmindedly searching for things. So let's say you happen to be talking to somebody who came to visit your house about propane patio heaters, for example, and you'd never considered one before. And it's not really something you might be considering, but you're thinking, wow, I wouldn't mind hanging out on my back deck when it's cold out. So you're looking online for something else, maybe at Lowe's or Home Depot, searching around for something for a different project. And hey, I wonder how much these patio heaters cost. We don't always remember when we do stuff like that, or, somebody will text you, the link to it after they talk to you about it, and you forgot that happened. But they've managed to show that, in almost every case where someone thinks their device was listening to them, no, it was actually something that they did that triggered that event. And one of the things I see frequently, I've seen a couple of videos on it from guys that were talking about security, is they mentioned that my friend A-Word here, well, let's let her say hello. So it's Alexa, say hello.
Hi.
See? So she's always here. But a couple of these security people I've watched, very paranoid people who think that the device is always listening to them. Well, it's always listening for its wake word. That's it. And people were trying to say that there's no way that it can, have enough circuitry to, process everything. So it's constantly hooked up to Amazon servers and therefore processing everything we say that way. No, that's not how it works. It has enough circuitry in it to recognize its wake word. That's how it works. Once it recognizes the wake word, which can be either Alexa, computer, or I think Echo is the other one. Once it recognizes that wake word, then it's listening to you. And it listens to everything you say after that and sends that phrase off to Amazon servers, processes it, and then sends the answer back. That's how these devices work. They are not processing locally anything other than their wake word, and they're not constantly sending everything you say back to them. They don't work that way. And people come up with these crazy stories about, whether it'll come in and comment on something. It'll think it hears its wake word sometimes, and then it'll try to interpret what it hears after that. And sometimes the results can be pretty funny. And I would be more suspect of our phones in a case like this than I would of one of these, home assistant devices, because especially in the Android world, people have managed to get some pretty funky apps into the app stores that do all sorts of things that they shouldn't be doing. So I would be more wary of your phone than your personal assistant. Okay, Google, do you want to get in on the conversation here?
Only if you want to.
Yeah, so that one's here too. I guess I could turn Siri on and have the three of them argue about something. World peace, nuclear physics. I don't know. That would be fun. Let me drop. And Lou, I didn't come to you yet. KD2 TVS. Sorry, I've been rambling.
That's okay, Neil. Other than what I said before about the programming and stuff, I haven't really, done much with the Arduino. So, anyways, I'll be looking forward to on Tuesday night. I'll be listening in more on those sketches and probably playing with some, as you say, programming. So maybe I'll get this little project completed by making that little clock. I guess I wanted just to have a display here near me with the Zulu time, I guess. So it's kind of fun to have something like that, I guess, to decide that, and so you have a reference to it. IoT stuff. I think it's convenient. I mean, it's nice, and I agree with you with the being more suspect of Android phones, because that's where I tend to see more of that happening. Being up, talking at home or about something, and all of a sudden it pops. You not that pops up on your phone, but that basically you go on your phone to check on something that you're talking about, or completely different than what we were talking about. And there's like an advertisement that comes up, those little advertisement windows up on top, and it'll be about what we were talking about. So I definitely agree that if it's anything, it'll be your Android phone. So I guess you gotta watch what you say around it. But back to you, Neil. KD2 TVS.
At some point during the next 4 or 5 years, someone will utter the phrase, "My refrigerator is blackmailing me." I'm going to throw a question out to Aaron, who's been throwing a lot of comments into the chat here about security. Aaron, do you use and or believe in password managers? And you can answer that. So he's talking about how, these devices, are getting more and more common in our homes, but a lot of the breaches, a lot of the fault in these devices not being secure is our own, because we really haven't learned good security habits. And that's a big thing. And, he was saying some of this, and he said, you'd be surprised that an 8-year-old could cause a major disaster from their bedroom because of the way the electric companies sometimes leave their devices wide open, and aren't using proper security. So he says he doesn't believe in using password managers himself. For some people, they might be helpful. I'm actually trying one out for the first time. And for those of you who don't know, Password Manager is an extremely secure platform, and usually a collection of applications between your mobile and home devices. And you use it to keep track of complex passwords. And that's how they work the best, is where you allow the app, or sometimes your browser can do it too, or you can do it yourself, to generate complex passwords for things that you need passwords for, and remember them in your password manager. And your password manager, to get into it, uses multi-factor authentication and complex password itself. But then you just have to remember that one complex password. And yes, he says, obviously the level of security here depends on the developer and where their database is kept. Correct. And you want to research these companies first. But the one I've been using, I believe, has never run into an issue, or at least nothing serious. So, but that's a lot of it. And something came up in the news recently about this. Paul, N3EYQ, mentioned in the chat that the default password is password. And yeah, one of the ways that people get into your home network, can hack into things, is that you go out, you buy a router, and we all knew that Linksys routers for many years, the username was admin and the password was I think admin as well, or password one. But the thing is that there are websites that give the default password for every device that's ever been made, including some pretty sophisticated devices. And you'd be surprised how many corporations, they'll buy something like a black box VPN setup. W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday night Science and Technology Net. I ran into this once myself. I got called in when I was doing a lot more consulting work, and I got called into a company to help them with their VPN setup. And they had left the default password on this VPN box. And it's basically SSL VPN is so that their salespeople and marketing people, when they were out in the field, could connect directly back to the company and run, the company's server applications, connect to the database, check inventory, and things like that. So if you can look up those default passwords, it's not hard to get into a network. And, if you're sitting outside one of these companies and you found out that their Wi-Fi was still using the default password, which is pretty easy to find out, then you're going to start looking around on the network and see what else you can get into. But this is how a lot of it happens. And that's why there are pretty hefty fines and bad press for companies that don't have good practices. So what did I hear of in the news that made me think of this? Europe, I believe, I think anybody within the EU, but a lot of European countries are passing a law that says that devices can no longer have default passwords. Interesting. So on setup, they'll force you to set one. Aaron has added, but just what I'm saying, most of the people out there don't update their devices. New security holes come out all the time. So you might think a password is your end all, but simply knowing a vulnerability, yes. And, I don't know how many years, there are people that, I would talk to in IT would tell me, oh, the first thing I do is turn Windows updates off. Okay. Well, we do know that Microsoft periodically does have trouble where they'll break something with an update. But if you never update your operating system, wow. Because you'll hear in the news that they've discovered some crazy vulnerability. And if you're not going to run updates, that can be a huge issue. And it's not just your computer, it's your router. Your cable company is updating your cable modem. You may not realize it, but they do that once in a while. And so when devices tell you that there's an update, it's probably a good idea to keep things updated. I know where I work, it's a rule. You can't put a device on the network unless it has some way of self-updating, which is really interesting when you get into some of these really sophisticated devices where the vendor says, we don't trust updates. And then we say, well, we don't trust you if you don't trust updates. So you're not allowed on the network. It becomes an interesting conversation, one that I have quite often. So, yeah. There are definitely better ways to go. I know Jim loves to talk about how, much easier it is to be secure in a Linux setup. And he's right, but Linux still does have similar things as well. If you don't update Linux, you're going to have issues. It's just less issues with their updates. And Mac OS is definitely usually more secure than the Windows world. But, they're really, really clamping down on pushing the updates on you as well these days. So anyway, that's our little security discussion here. Is there anybody else who would like to pop in with a call sign and a name? Or Joe, if you're still in the conversation, you can pop in as well now if you have something to add. I know you said, I think you were stepping out, Bill. All right, nothing heard. Let's see. All except driver updates for Baofeng radio programming cables. Yeah, good point, Paul. But that's because the update only disables the counterfeit chips, which unfortunately a lot of even good manufacturers were duped into buying. So, and what I mean by that is, these serial to USB conversion cables that are used in most of the radio programming cables that we have, but they're used in a lot of other devices. A lot of devices where I work, instrumentation that's attached to computers. Most of these devices at their heart are serial devices, and they're using some sort of USB conversion. So there was a whole period of time where a lot of the chips going into these devices were counterfeit. And Prolific and FTDI, a couple of the major manufacturers of them, figured out how to detect through the driver if the chip was genuine or not. And they started disabling the device if it was detected as a counterfeit chip. And people went nuts because some of the manufacturers didn't realize that they had counterfeit chips in their devices, and suddenly they have customers screaming at them that Windows disabled their device because it's counterfeit. Well, so most of those companies backpedaled on that, but it's still an issue with some of them. So sometimes you have to search out the old drivers to make things work. All right. Instead of a full round here, I'm just going to pop anybody who would like to comment on everything so far or add anything to the discussion can throw out their call sign now, and I'll answer. All right, Jim. And anybody else like to get thrown into a little quick final chat here?
Oh, I'm in here. Answer you like you. I want both.
I figured you were listening, Paul. All right, let's go to Jim. And I figured you would have a couple things to say about this stuff.
It's just utterly amazing how valuable and useful IoT is. I don't know how we lived without it before. A couple of examples is you can just look at your smartphone and see how many loads of wash was done down the wash machine. And I got a phone call from the dealership down in New Jersey BMW contacted them and said it was time for an oil change. I think I might have ridden in a BMW once, but I don't know if it needed an oil change or not, and it wasn't even mine. But the prime example, when I worked at SUNY, the elevators were put in the 60s. So back, about 10 years ago, they decided that they needed to be updated. So they went and gutted them and put in all new elevators. And so now, with the sensors and everything else, when the internet goes down in the building, the elevators go to the nearest floor, open the doors up, and freeze. So if you're a paraplegic and you're on the second or third floor or whatever, they have to call the fire department to come in with their whatever and take you out of the building because the internet went down. So let me drop a second. And back on the Raspberry Pi Arduino thing, there are different things that they do better. There's a certain particular multicolor LED. There's a red, green, and blue LED in the same module, and it takes a 21-bit serial code to access the three lights and put the intensity in, and they can go along in strings. So the first LED grabs the first 21 bits and acts on it, and then passes everything else beyond that through to the second one, who takes 21 bits and so forth. So if you got a light, you have to generate a serial port with, if you got 100 LED lights, you got to have a serial port with 2100 bits on it. So that's a job for the Arduino. The Raspberry Pi doesn't do it because it gets preoccupied with other things and loses track of the timing. So anyhow, that's about it. I'm, like I say, just barely hanging on here. K2BHM.
W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. No, that's right, Jim, and thanks for chiming in. Yeah, like I said about my washing machine, it's not a feature I wanted. It's not a feature I was looking for, and it's not a feature I find particularly useful. The only time it's useful to me is when I put up, or somebody has a load of laundry in there, and I need the machine next, and I'm just looking for that alert so I know when it's done, so I can come up out of the basement and put my load in next. Do I need it? Oh, no, I definitely don't need it. As far as your elevators, that's just really poor planning and poor design. To have elevators that are connected, that can instantly report trouble to whatever office that needs to know, or tell them that something is out of spec, out of code. I could definitely see the positive uses of that technology in something like an elevator. But to set it up so that they won't function without it, no. That's just really terrible design. Pretty bad. Aaron, who's commenting here in YouTube, he says, "Tell Jim I was watching his house while he was away." No, we know you do have a certain level of automation, but that's not connected to the outside, I'm sure. Let's see. Remotely turn on the dryer on high all day. Yeah, but that's the thing is, like with my garage doors, there are ways to interface the garage door openers, which were Wi-Fi enabled, with one of these home hubs, and so you can do things with the garage door interacting with apps, and basically it's for linking things. There was an application you can buy, a platform actually called If That Then This, where you can write little scripts and put together events so that, all right, I come home, I open my garage door. When I open the garage door, I want to turn on all the front spotlights in the house, things like that. That's the connectivity that's there. But what doesn't exist is a way to open the garage door from the internet, other than through the app that's on my phone. So the only way someone's going to get into the house through that type of connection, at least through the garage door, is if they, had my phone and knew my, biometrics to get into it. So could someone still get around that? Oh, I'm sure there's people out there that can, but there's no way to link the device to anything else for opening. There's a close function that I can do, but not an opening one. So I was able to set up something with my friend A-Word here over on the left to close the door, but not open it. Interesting. But for the same reason, Aaron was just joking around about the dryer. No, you can't turn the dryer on remotely, at least with LG stuff. Not possible. You can only do any kind of control once the devices are already on, but there is no way to turn them on. So I thought that was, at least they're thinking of these things. But I'll bet you there's devices out there that don't. Probably some of the more mundane ones like coffee makers. Yes, and as far as Arduino goes versus something like a Raspberry Pi, we see Arduinos in single purpose installations, embedded type of setups where you have a device that's doing one thing, and they are, in situations like that, more efficient power wise. They use a lot less power to do control operations and sensing operations. So frequently that's why we see microcontrollers in devices as opposed to something like the Pi. There is a radio coming out that will have a Raspberry Pi inside of it, but it's a home rig. It's not designed as a QRP portable rig, not something you're going to do summits on the air with, because they're not very power efficient. But most of these new radios I've been talking about a lot, these little, digitally controlled or DSP or SDR based QRP rigs, are using Arduino based controllers to do more and more and more, including with the latest one I've been building. The microcontroller is actually generating the sideband signal, which is the first time anybody's ever been able to manage to do that. So, and very, very efficient device power-wise because of the way they do it. So that's one of the reasons why we see microcontrollers and not something like a full-fledged computer with all the trimmings in small objects and machines. So, but that's what we're going to talk about on Tuesday. Paul, N3EYQ, do you have anything vocally to add?
I just threw something out there. I probably shouldn't have done it, but oh well. I got a webcam on the cars, and I've got a sky cam out there, so I just keep an eye on a Camaro for me. Something just a little different and interesting when I'm gone. Make sure nobody breaks into it and gets my radio. Actually, I had somebody go into my car one night. I think I left it unlocked. I got a unit and scanner to disappear out of it. It's like, okay, back to monitoring what's going on with that, with who's around here. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I'm looking at. Anyway, other than that, not much else. N3EYQ.
That's fine. And yeah, I mean, cameras, it's a whole different part of this. And, do you want to have a camera that's completely tied to an external service, a subscription type of thing where all of your videos go to a cloud and, or do it yourself with your own system? So definitely one way or the other. Aaron mentioned the Raspberry Pi Pico. Yes, I have one. Came with a project from WaveShare that I want to put together, but we'll mention that. And the simulator that I'm going to use, which was really cool, has the Pico as one of its default boards. So I haven't played with it yet. I will. Anyway, this is all the stuff. It just depends on how much of it you want to share or how much of it you want to risk unintentionally sharing. All right. Anybody else would like to chime in before we close things up? I know Bob was trying to get home, but hopefully he made it all the way up that crazy road. But anybody else want to throw in a comment or comment at the last minute here? Please throw me your call sign now.
That's it. November 2, Foxtrot, Zulu, Charlie.
All right, Tom, how you doing tonight? We've been talking about security of IoT or Internet of Things devices. We were talking about programming and microcontrollers. That was mainly everything we were talking about.
Good evening, group. N2FCC. I've been listening, so heard the discussion. Wanted to throw in a sort of a comment story. When my son first moved into his house in Stormville, he had it set up so that the kids go to school and he'd go to work, would turn the heat down, and turn the hot water, I think the hot water heater off or whatever. And when he came back, everything would power up again. So well and good until he went on a business trip, for a couple of days. They had no hot water because he wasn't home. The hot water heater wasn't going to be on. Oops. So we had to remotely change the parameters so that they could have hot water. And to FCC back to that.
All right. Yeah. Oh, there's definitely, sometimes things will seem simple, and then when they actually play out, they're a little more complicated than we expect them to be. I have smart thermostats, mostly so that they can kind of, learn and self-adjust a little bit. But it's also nice to be able to see what's going on in the house temperature-wise from somewhere else. But I could do that with a simple sensor. But it's nice to be able to adjust the other end of the house when I'm at this end of the house. But that's just laziness. I mean, let's be honest. But there are some things that it can interface with that do make it interesting. But it's funny. It's like the next model up had the Amazon Echo built into it, and it's like I don't need that for sure. I don't need to be talking to my thermostat. It tells me what the weather is. That's about as much information as I want out of it, other than what's going on in the house. It's nice to look at it and have it tell me, what it thinks the temperature is outside, because it's getting it from probably scraping weather underground. But it's nice to know what it thinks the weather is going to be like, too. So it's just one of those places I can stop and look at that. But I have probably about 50 places in the house where I can check the weather, either visually or vocally. Isn't that right, my friend? Anyway, and for those of you who are simply on the radio, every time I do this, I'm looking to my left at the little softball-sized thing sitting here on my desk. We can do all sorts of things. I can have it read me the weather in different celebrity voices as well. Do I need that? Of course not. I don't need any of this. And that's what we're talking about. It can all go away and I'll be fine. All conveniences, especially the blinds I was looking at tonight. Once again, a lot of it's just about laziness. I would think that I would really enjoy having an autonomous mower, though. Right? Would you like that? The Roomba that does your lawn? Anyway, let me drop the final comments. All right. Well, you have been listening to and or watching the Overlook Mountain Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Gather here at 8 p.m. on Sundays to talk about science and technology with myself, W2NDG from Highland, and Jim, K2BHM from Saugerties. Please join us every Sunday night, although we will not be here next Sunday night unless somebody wants to volunteer to run the net. I will not be available to do the net next Sunday. So I'm going to see if I can push CJ back into action, and maybe he can run the net one night. For those of you who don't know, CJ used to run a net in this time slot called the, I can't remember, the All Things Natural net, where he talked about modern farming and other natural subjects. So it was a pretty cool net. But CJ had left the area for a little while, but now that he's back, maybe he wants to get back into the swing. We'll see if I can get him to guest host. Anyway, let me drop and close things up. This net has been brought to you by the Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club, OMARC, a local group of amateur radio operators. And we get together and do all sorts of fun things. We had a RDF, radio direction finding party yesterday with a barbecue. And we do education, we do public service, and we get involved in all sorts of technological things. Please check us out. You don't have to be a member of OMARC to participate in any of the nets that we have here, but we'd like you to check us out at omarcclub.org, omarcclub.org. And yes, please join us for the other nets that happen on this repeater. We have 2 daily nets at 8:35 and 6:30 p.m. At 8:35 a.m., the 8:35 on the 805 is a roundtable net, not a directed net, but just a gathering of hams in a social environment. And Paul calls it the virtual diner, where we all get together and support each other. Started during the beginning of COVID when we couldn't be as social. So the net took the place of that little diner group having breakfast together. Well, please join us, and it's a friendly gathering every morning at 8:35. The 6:30 p.m. check-in net is very similar, but a directed net run by a rotating cast of OMARC members as net director. So please check in at 6:30 and tell us how your day went. And if you need anything, if you need any assistance with anything, we're all here. Monday nights at 8 p.m. is the Undernet, the Ulster and Northern Duchess Readiness Net, a group of hams trying to educate other hams on emergency preparedness and how technology fits into that. All sorts of methods of making sure that you have the tools you need and the knowledge you need to be able to operate a radio, to communicate correctly in the event of an emergency. And like we were talking about the network tonight and relying on it too much. We don't want to rely on it too much. Let's figure out how to work without it. So that's the Undernet. Thursday nights at 8 p.m., the club president, Dave, K2LD, K2JLV, runs the Thursday night OMARC TechNet, technical net like this one, but usually ham radio oriented or computer oriented, related to ham radio. Dave will try to come up with a topic for us or take one from the first round of check-ins if somebody has a troubleshooting issue or something they were asking about. And that can run 4 or 5 rounds into the night and has solved some issues for people. It's a lot of fun. Please check in on Thursdays. I'll also mention a net that happens off of this repeater, and that's on Wednesdays. Wednesdays at 5 p.m. on 3835 kilohertz or 3.835 megahertz is the Hudson Valley 80-meter net, usually run by Paul, EC2UQ, but he's got some rotating net controls in there now. So 5 p.m. on 3835, lower sideband. Come check in. We get check-ins from all over the Northeast. It's a fun net, and we'd love to hear you on there. And once again, I am Neil, W2NDG, from Highland, and we're going to end the Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. I'm going to end the YouTube stream also, and we hope to catch everybody back here with me in 2 weeks. Once again, I won't be here next Sunday, so everybody have a great couple of weeks, and I will see you on the radio. 7-3.